The night someone answered from inside the house at exactly 1:38 a.m. The motion light behind the house turned on. Rachel noticed it because she wasn't asleep yet. She lay on her side in bed, scrolling aimlessly, when the room suddenly filled with a faint white glow leaking through the curtains. At first, she thought it was a car passing by. Then the light stayed on. She frowned. The backyard motion sensor almost never triggered. No pets, no trees close enough to move, and the yard was fully fenced. She put the phone down and listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just the low hum of the refrigerator somewhere in the house and the ticking of the wall clock. Rachel told herself it was probably a raccoon. She turned over. Then she heard it. A soft, deliberate click, double asterisk. Not loud, not sudden. The kind of sound you only notice when the house is silent. It came from downstairs. Rachel sat up slowly, heart tightening. She held her breath and listened again. Silence. Then another sound. A drawer being opened. Her mouth went dry. She lived alone in a small 2-story home in a quiet Ohio suburb. No roommates, no pets. Every door locked before bed. Always. She reached for her phone and texted her sister. "I think someone is in my house." No reply. Another sound followed. Footsteps this time. Slow. Heavy. Not rushed. Not confused. Whoever it was knew where they were going. Rachel slid out of bed as quietly as she could and locked her bedroom door. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone while dialing 911. The dispatcher answered. 911, what's your emergency? Rachel whispered. Someone is inside my house. The dispatcher asked her to confirm her address. Rachel did, barely able to get the words out. Are you in a safe place? I'm upstairs. My bedroom is locked. Do you see or hear them right now? Rachel pressed the phone closer to her ear. Yes. The footsteps had stopped. They were directly outside her bedroom door. She covered her mouth. The dispatcher's voice became firmer. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line with me. Rachel nodded, even though the dispatcher couldn't see her. Then came the knock. Not hard, not aggressive. Just a gentle knock on the bedroom door. Rachel froze. A man's voice spoke through the door. Rachel, he said calmly. Her blood went cold. She had never told the dispatcher her name. She whispered into the phone, he knows my name. The dispatcher went silent for half a second, then said, Rachel, do not respond. Help is coming. The man outside the door sighed softly. You don't have to be scared, he said. I just want to talk. The door handle rattled once, then again. Rachel backed into the corner of the room, clutching the phone like it was the only thing keeping her alive. The dispatcher was still there, breathing steadily, telling her to stay quiet. Downstairs, something crashed. Maybe a picture frame, maybe furniture being knocked over. The man stopped trying the door. His footsteps retreated. Rachel didn't move for nearly 10 minutes. When police finally arrived, they found the back door open. No signs of forced entry. No suspect, but they found something else. In the kitchen trash can was a piece of paper. On it was written her full name, her work schedule, and tonight's date circled. Rachel sold the house 2 weeks later. Police believe the man had been inside before, watching, waiting, learning, and that night wasn't random. The last text message Mark sent was simple. I think I found someone. It came in at 6:42 p.m. from deep inside the Olympic National Forest in Washington State. There was no signal out there most of the time, so when the message delivered, his sister assumed it was nothing urgent. Mark was an experienced hiker, former Boy Scout, careful, calm. He was supposed to be back by Sunday night. By Tuesday morning, he still hadn't returned. Search and rescue was called that afternoon. Rangers weren't immediately concerned. People got delayed in the Olympic wilderness all the time. Twisted ankles, weather shifts, lost trails. It happened. But then they pulled Mark's phone data. That last message wasn't sent from a trail. It was sent from 2 miles off route, in an area marked no recreational access. The first team went in at dawn. They found Mark's backpack hanging from a tree branch, almost neatly placed. Inside were his food supplies, first aid kit, and satellite beacon, untouched. That alone made no sense. Experienced hikers do not abandon survival gear. 30 yards away they found footprints, 2 sets. One matched Mark's boots. The other was barefoot. The trail cameras in that region weren't meant for people. They were for wildlife monitoring. Motion activated, low resolution, rarely checked. When rangers reviewed the footage later, they noticed something disturbing. At 1:13 a.m., a man walked past the camera. He was barefoot, dirty, bearded, and smiling directly at the lens. At 1:19 a.m., Mark walked past the same camera. His hands were tied behind his back. He was limping, and someone was walking behind him, just out of frame. Search teams followed the footprints deeper into restricted forest. They found a makeshift shelter built from fallen branches and tarp scraps. Inside were dozens of items that didn't belong there. Wallets, clothing, shoes, camping gear. Some of it was decades old. Some of it was recent. Pinned to the inside of the shelter was a crude map. It marked trails, campsites, and dates. The man living there wasn't surviving. He was hunting. Mark was found alive 3 days later, nearly unrecognizable. Mark survived because helicopters flew overhead and the man panicked. The suspect was never officially identified. Rangers believe he had been living in the forest for years, blending in, watching, waiting for hikers who trusted strangers. To this day, parts of that forest remain closed, not because of wildlife, but because they never proved he left. The 911 call that came from an empty house at 3:11 a.m. The 911 center in rural Indiana received a call with no voice, just breathing. The dispatcher, a woman with 15 years on the job, followed protocol. 911. What's your emergency? No answer. The breathing continued. Slow, shallow, like someone trying not to be heard. She tagged the call as a possible domestic emergency and traced the location. The address belonged to a small farmhouse on the edge of town. Single resident, female, late 20s. The dispatcher spoke again. If you can hear me, tap the phone. Nothing. Then, very faintly, a sound came through the line, a floorboard creaking. The dispatcher's posture changed. She muted her mic and signaled a supervisor. Patrol units were already being sent. She returned to the line. Ma'am, help is on the way. Stay with me. This time, the breathing stopped. A man's voice replaced it. Low, close to the phone. She can't. The line went dead. Officers arrived in under 7 minutes. The front door was closed, locked, no lights on inside. They announced themselves. No response. When they forced entry, the house was silent. No sign of struggle. No overturned furniture. No broken glass. The resident, Emily Harper, was found upstairs in her bedroom, dead. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. Time of death, approximately 30 minutes before the 911 call. That detail stopped the investigation cold, because the call had come after she was already dead. They recovered Emily's phone from the kitchen counter. It wasn't damaged, it wasn't locked, and it hadn't been moved. Call log showed the 911 call placed at 3:11 a.m. The phone had no outgoing calls before that, no incoming calls, no alarm set, no explanation. Then body cam footage from one of the officers revealed something no one noticed that night. As officers searched the house, one camera briefly captured movement in a hallway mirror, a reflection, someone standing behind them. But when the officer turned around, the hallway was empty. Investigators reviewed the audio from the original 911 call again. After enhancing the recording, they found something buried beneath the breathing. Another sound, soft, rhythmic, footsteps pacing, and a whisper, barely audible, repeating the same sentence over and over. She sees you now. The case was quietly closed as an unknown suspect. But dispatchers still talk about it, because that phone number called 911 again 2 months later, same address, same breathing, same man's voice. The house had been vacant since Emily's death. No power, no active phone service, no one inside, and yet the call connected. The final words recorded before disconnection were never released publicly. Only one dispatcher heard them. She resigned 2 weeks later. All she told her supervisor was this: whatever made that call wasn't reporting a crime. It was letting us know it was still there. The last car that stopped for her at 11:48 p.m. The car died without warning. No sputter, no warning lights, just silence. Megan pulled over onto the gravel shoulder of Interstate 40 somewhere in western New Mexico. The desert stretched endlessly on both sides of the road, broken only by distant hills and the occasional passing semi-truck that shook the air as it went by. She tried the ignition again. Nothing. Her phone showed 2% battery and no service. Megan wasn't reckless. She had planned the drive carefully, but the gas station she expected to stop at had been closed, its lights dark, its pumps wrapped in yellow tape. The next one was supposed to be 20 miles away. She never made it. She locked the doors and waited. The wind rocked the car gently. Trucks passed. None slowed. At 12:21 a.m., double asterisks, headlights appeared behind her and stopped. A pickup truck. Old, white, no markings. A man stepped out. He didn't approach immediately. He stood by his truck, hands visible, waiting. That alone made Megan feel safer. He kept his distance when he finally spoke. Car trouble? She cracked the window just enough to hear him. He said his name was Ron. Said he lived nearby. Said he had tools. Said he could give her a ride to the next town. Megan hesitated. He smiled, not offended. Totally understand, he said. My wife wouldn't stop either. That sentence convinced her. She unlocked the door. The ride was quiet at first. Ron didn't push conversation. He drove steadily, confidently, like someone who knew the road. After 15 minutes, Megan noticed something wrong. They hadn't passed a single exit. No lights, no signs, just darkness. Is the town far? She asked. Ron didn't answer right away. Then he said, depends which one. Her stomach tightened. She reached for her phone. Dead. Ron glanced at her hand and smiled again. You don't need that. Megan tried to open the door. The child lock was on. Her voice shook. Let me out, please. Ron sighed, almost disappointed. I stopped because you looked like you'd listen, he said. Most don't. He turned off the highway, onto a dirt road. The truck slowed. Megan screamed. No one heard. What saved her was a mistake Ron didn't expect. A ranch fence cut across the road. Locked. He had to stop. Megan slammed the dashboard, kicked the door, and as Ron leaned over to grab her, she did the only thing she could think of. She jammed her fingers into his eyes. The truck rolled forward and stalled. Megan bolted into the desert. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out. A passing truck found her nearly an hour later, barefoot, bleeding, incoherent. Ron was never caught. But police later found 3 abandoned vehicles along that same stretch of road, all with the same issue: engine disabled. Fuel lines cut clean. To this day, truckers warn each other about stopping on that highway at night, not because of breakdowns,